Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center contact center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items to take back into your contact center, improve your overall quality, improve the agent experience, and hopefully improve the customer experience as well. My name is Tom Laird. I'm the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing. We are a 600-seat call center outsourcer located here in now dreary, rainy, but 50-degree Erie, Pennsylvania. So it's good to have everybody back. I don't want to say I'm excited for this episode because I think it kind of undermines, my feelings for this. But for everyone who has followed the podcast and all, 180 episodes, there's been even the last year and a half, we have discussed the blockchain. We have just talked about NFTs. We have talked about, how the intersection of blockchain and CX kind of comes together. And while I have thoughts and theories on it, we have somebody with us that is actually doing it, putting it into contact centers, thinking through processes, procedures on how the blockchain will affect the contact center and customer experience in general. So without further ado, we have Shelli Ryan with us. Shelli, how are you?
I am fabulous. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, no, I'm excited to have you on. I want to give you here a minute or two to kind of explain your company, maybe even give the website, talk about the things that you've done, and let's talk about some blockchain things and affecting the customer experience.
You got it. Well, let me rewind it slightly back in 2019. I'm flying back on a plane from London. I was at a C-suite meeting, and we're trying to solve for omnichannel because, as we all know, it doesn't work like we all say it does as marketers, right? So I'm on this plane and I'm going, man, I think that blockchain could actually link all of the channels together so there's no friction and there's no issues. I got home, made a couple calls, and in the next few days, I spun up a company called the CX Blockchain Institute, and we are the worldwide authority to implement blockchain in the CX environment. And what does that mean? Well, we simplify blockchain implementation. We create well-defined differentiators for call centers who are trying to find that edge of how we make ourselves different. And then we have a pretty unique certification program that is very similar to PCI compliance, where we come back and we certify the implementation of that blockchain in call center. And every year they get that certification renewed as a differentiator. So we're here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we are at the Harry Reid Technology Park. That's where we're located. And our website is cxblockchain.org, where everyone can find our market intel research report that we started in 2019, where we take the pulse of CX on their implementation, their appetite, and some of the pain points that could be solved with blockchain.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of the things that you just kind of unpacked there, and let's start really basic, right?
Yep.
So everybody has, if you've listened to this podcast, if you are into any kind of technology whatsoever, right? You've heard the term blockchain. You may have a kind of general understanding. I think there's a ton of misconceptions, right, over the actual underlying technology, because we do talk about crypto and we confuse things with NFTs, and we forget that all those are laying on top of this actual technology that is the blockchain. Can you just, in your kind of, words, talk about the blockchain, maybe give kind of your definition of it, and then maybe how it can really relate to CX and to contact centers?
Yeah, and a lot of folks apply blockchain to the crypto conversation, and we're totally not doing that. So I want to just say that up front. If we could think about blockchain as a series of data blocks, and every block of data has a certain volume to which it gets full. And when the block of data is full, then the chain makes another block of data. And then when that gets full, it gets another block of data. All of those blocks of data are then linked together to form a blockchain. So that's as simple as I can make it. But ultimately, it is a registry that is unchangeable. It is one that is transparent, and it's one that can take different forms of data, different processes, and different applications onto it so that it's a one throat to choke. And as you might imagine, as I thought through how to fix omnichannel, it was a logical answer to how do we fix omnichannel for good.
Yeah. So let's talk about that omni-channel thing. So when you know are looking through that, you know, how does that have an impact, right? So are you saying we could have, you know, data from a CRM? I guess kind of explain when you say omni-channel, when it relates to the blockchain. Just go a little bit deeper on that, because I have a couple questions on that too, because I think that's the absolute perfect use case for this.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit of a story on an implementation that we've done recently through the SK Weston company. They are our partner to help think through how we implement and how we right size, improve CX. This is a retail bank, and they had friction in their channels. They had, because of different acquisitions, they had customer data over here, customer data over there. All the relationships were spread across multiple systems. Very hard to have a very consistent CX delivery. In comes blockchain, and the blockchain registry collects all the information into a single location, just like I mentioned before, that chain has all the data in one area where it's very easy to access, therefore decreasing the friction in the channels, but also increasing the customer experience and the CSAT scores. So all of that from a retail environment, CRM, workforce management, some of the agent pops, all of that again was put on the blockchain. And as a result, and this is pretty amazing, right? 22% increase in CSAT scores, 35% reduction in average handle time, and then 42% increase in self-service resolution rates, because again, once you have the data, you can solve the problem.
Yeah, and it's so easy to access, right? Over multiple layers of again, you're right. I could see, you know, so many banks purchase other banks, and there's so much data that is out there to be able to kind of mainstream that on the blockchain for easy access for agents, for self-service. And, you know, the one thing, even in our pre-talk here, we didn't really talk about the security aspect, right? And I think, you know, that's probably a really big piece of this as well.
Yeah, let me forward. I was going to get some data on that because we did, as I mentioned, a market intel study. We just concluded a 22 study, which can be found on our website at cxblockchain.org. And hey, security is at the tippy top of the list to say, this is a pain point that we think blockchain can fix for us, get the right data to the right agent at the right time. In fact, 36% of those that we surveyed said we need right data to agents. And then 27% said, give me consistent omni-channel. But compliance and data security was right up there for those of us who are like you, like BPOs. We asked them, and they said governance and compliance and data security. 22% of them said that's their top number one factor in deploying blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can make a mistake, but if you are an outsourced vendor from the contact center world and you're dealing with, you know, with us, with financial information, with insurance information, with HIPAA compliance data, with PCI compliance, we can't make one mistake. If you make one mistake, first of all, that you lose that client, that word gets out, you lose the business. So, you know, security for us by far is the main thing. And I think for me, that's a huge plus for blockchain usage for sure.
Well, for BPOs in particular, and for your audience, I do feel like blockchain is a differentiator. Look, a lot of the brands are looking at blockchain now. And if we think through the business aspect of that, if the brand, the captive call center, is going to be implementing blockchain, why the heck do they need the BPOs, right? So it would be becoming of the BPOs to already be ahead of the brands to implement blockchain and say, look, we got it. Outsource your work to us because we're secure, we're consistent with our omni-channel, and we're delighting and increasing NPS scores. So we got to get ahead of the brands implementing it. I mean, from a BPO community, we have to implement it. Otherwise, why do they outsource their stuff to us? They could, quite frankly, be self-service and brand captive call center. And I'm not threatening, but I'm just saying I could see it happening.
Yeah,
there are a bunch of different brands that are implementing blockchain now in a variety of different areas, from accounting to smart contracts to supply chain to logistics. I don't want the call center to be left behind in that regard. And that's why I started the business and really being on this show to give awareness as to how that could play out in a call center environment.
Shelli, not to get, again, 30,000 foot view, stay super high level here. How does that look? So I'm a BPO. I come to you and say, hey, listen, I have whatever, 35 clients, and we want to create our own private blockchain. Again, not getting into the programming aspect of this, but high level, like what do those conversations look like to start thinking that process through? If you are a BPO and you're looking to say, hey, I want to at least put my toe into this and figure out how do I get involved with this, or how do I start to utilize the technology?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. And we tried to keep it pretty simple, 4 or 5 steps. So it's very similar, Tom, to the transformation audits that BPOs are already doing now for digital transformation to insert speech analytics or predictive analytics or AI or machine learning, all of that. Very similar to that. So we'll come on site and we'll do an audit. It takes typically 2 to 3 months to fully integrate everything. Depending on a number of sites. If you're a TP, probably going to take a little bit longer.
Right.
If you're a 600 seat call center, it's going to take a little less. Then we report out and we say, hey, we looked at the IVR, the WFM, the workforce, the CRM, all of those applications. And here's where we think we can make a difference with blockchain here, here, and here. And if we're presenting to the CFO, CEO, or the board, they're going to go, here, 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 please do that. We bring in our implementation specialists like StrongBlock and some other software companies in Silicon Valley. They code it for us. They do the physical coding. And then while they're doing that, we do some education, right? We concurrently do education. So as I might have mentioned previously, I implemented RPA within a pretty big BPO, $22 billion BPO, by the way, up, down, and sideways within their environment, and then cascaded out to their clients. What we found, Tom, was that sometimes when you get to the mid-market, mid-tier staffer, they get really freaked out that technology will take their job away. So that education piece is pretty important to say, hey, we're going to tell you what blockchain is, what it isn't, how your job may be affected, maybe it won't be, but here are the guidelines, here are the bumpers, and here's how you sell it. Here's how you sell it to your team. Here's how you sell it to your clients. So all that education is happening while we're implementing blockchain. And then when it's done, we come back and we say, okay, let's just make sure that you complied to everything we did and implemented. About 2 or 3 months after that, we'll go back and make sure it's all in compliance. And we'll ask the brand, or we'll ask the BPO, now is your time to be a differentiator. Do you want to certify yourself? If they say yes, then our audit specialists come in and do the check marks of did they do everything that we asked them to do. And if they did, then they're CX blockchain ready, certified. And we know that some of these procurement guys that are pushing out RFIs, RFPs are now adding CX blockchain certification in addition to PCI compliance, PCI certified, ISO, and the like. So it's pretty simple. Just to conclude, audit, implementation, training, and then certification. Pretty simple steps.
Super simple.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I think let me ask you this too, because from an agent perspective, right? From a call center perspective, I have these tools right now, right? So let's just take like my call center, right? We're on the nice CX1 platform. We have interaction analytics. We have their WFM platform. I have multiple clients that maybe have their own CRM, Zoho, Zendesk, Salesforce. How does the agent experience look then? Is this for everybody listening? Is this all kind of on the back end that would then feed into that, or how does that kind of, I guess, that look from kind of the agent, the front end agent experience?
I could imagine that the agent pops would be reduced, that you'd have maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 max, or maybe you have 1 consolidated, but largely it's on the back end. But whatever is in the back end ultimately gets to the front end because because now the agent doesn't have to go here, here, and here. She's going here because it's all on the registry. And we've seen that in multiple instances where it's cutting down their time. It is cutting down the handle time. I mean, seriously, when you're talking about repeat your name, repeat your social security number, repeat this and repeat that. I mean, it gets a little bit full of friction there because you're going, man, I wrote all that in. I told you about it. And now you're asking me to repeat my name again.
Yeah, no, right. And listen, I didn't mean to laugh on the ease of it. I think I was more like, yeah, I mean, I think that this really could be implemented.
Yeah.
In the thought process of it is, once I think somebody would come and talk to you and kind of have that discussion as we're kind of having this real high level of taking multiple data sources and creating kind of that almost that single pane of glass in our world, right? Even from a user experience, you and I talked to pre-call. Of course, everybody, like if you are on any kind of call center podcast, in the last 6 weeks, you have to talk about AI or like you're automatically banned, right? Or nobody listens. So, and
Right.
again, I think, there is some really good kind of merging of technologies here too. This does not seem like a this or that. But again, anything that's kind of helping that agent experience and helping that customer experience become faster. And then, maybe even there is that merge of AI with that blockchain to kind of do some of those tasks.
Yeah, let me talk about merging of technology since you introduced the subject. I do feel like there is a tipping point between all of these great technologies, machine learning, RPA, blockchain, metaverse, AI, conversational AI, and the like. I do feel like we have to come to a centering point of a hub and then the spoke of the variety of technologies that are fed into the hub. And I feel like the hub could be that blockchain registry. So for example, if you say I have a 600 seat BPO and I have NICE and I have some others, you've got quite a few vendors that you have to herd the cats on, right? Well, blockchain can help bring everybody in through an API and they're feeding into blockchain, the registry, to keep them all accountable, but also that you're not held hostage by that third party vendor.
Right.
You own it.
Right. It's yours. Can you talk about, I know you gave a couple awesome examples. I think that's really interesting. Can you give a couple maybe brands that you've seen that have come into the space that have kind of utilized the technology and maybe a couple, use cases that they used it for?
Yeah. I mean, big brands are getting into this. JP Morgan Chase, Walmart, FedEx, a lot of the art related companies that aren't coming to my mind right now. But again, they're just trying to find that they can have one source of truth, that everything is in the sunshine. And so, for example, if we would have had blockchain up and running like I'm talking about now, we probably would have lesser supply chain issues in the pandemic.
And not to interrupt you, but you're absolutely right. That's one of the biggest use cases that I've seen is the logistics standpoint.
Yes.
And because that thing is so unwieldy. Is that the right way? Unwieldy, unwildly, it's unwieldy. That to have that one set of books.
Yes.
That can make a huge difference. I mean, I think that's a huge use case for sure.
Well, let me back to CX now, right? So logistics is very much tied into CX because it's like, hey, I ordered a sofa. It's coming from China. When is it coming? And you call the call center and they go, man, I don't know because we don't have updated logistics. It could have been on the registry in 2 seconds. Sally, the call center agent, can say, oh, Ms. Ryan, so sorry, your sofa's in Michigan and it's going to be there for 4 weeks. I mean, at least I would know where my sofa is, right? Yeah. So I think that supply chain and logistics connected to the CX call center knowledge base is instrumental. And we experienced that pain point through pandemic hell. Yeah. I really do think that we have a lot of lessons that we could learn from that, especially BPOs.
And not to get, and again, we're not going to go down the NFT world here, but from a smart contract standpoint, one of the use cases in just reading about this too is even taking it a little simpler, right? And tell me if I'm totally crazy, but there's kind of those if then statements to get paid. Like, let's say I'm getting, I don't know, everybody's cut the cord, so probably satellite TV is a bad example, but let's just say that we're all still using DirecTV. And, you could have something in the smart contract that basically says, if this thing gets installed on the 31st, you pay me, $22 a month. If it gets installed after, it goes to 18. And You know what I mean? Those type of, that's a horrible example, I'm sure, but you kind of get the idea of, you know, these kind of anything that you can put into a contract that then you can put on the blockchain. And I think that's we think about smart contracts, and we think about NFTs, and we think about, again, all the Bored Apes and JPEGs, and it gets this convoluted thing when we don't realize that first layer of having the smart contract that then goes into the blockchain, that then we can then access to see where things are, to have if-then statements that companies will make and can vouch by their products. I think is another really important CX kind of point.
Well, and I think you bring up a good issue with smart contracts and how do you map it back to CX. So I'll give you another good example, right? So we don't want to have the contact center as a cost center, right? We want to be a profit center. And oftentimes we are asked to upsell, cross-sell, and make sure people don't attrit on their subscriptions. You make a very good case for if we have if-then statements for smart contracts on the blockchain, an agent at the ready can say, hey, look, because it pops up, it says this, you are eligible for an NFT that's worth whatever. Do you want to stay, or could you stay as a loyal customer? I think that could really affect some of the NPS scores that we're seeing today.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool use case. And again, I mean, I've talked, and everybody knows how I feel about NFTs, and again, not to get into that conversation, but I think that there are, when used properly in the future with the blockchain, with smart contracts, the utility of some of the things that brands are going to come up with from a customer experience standpoint then, or from a loyalty standpoint, I think will be a little revolutionary. There's right now, as you and I talk, there's just so much friction and so much kind of worry about, you know, people dealing with wallets and kind of so again, that's why the blockchain, I think in its purest sense, is still extremely relevant, because that technology is here right now, and it's things that we could be utilizing right now without having to think about these other things that I think have totally kind of convoluted the story.
Well, just to bring it home, here are the 3 areas where I see CX blockchain helping to affect call center operations. One is streamlining operations. That's big, right? 2 is data security compliance. And then 3 is productivity of the agents, which really maps back to number 1. All of those 3 make a very healthy BPO/CX captive call center. And look, at the end of the day, it's about the numbers. Are we generating revenue, or are we going backwards? And blockchain can help you move forward 3 steps instead of going 1.5 in these really uncertain times when folks in brands are recoiling, not outsourcing as much. They're not putting together a lot of the technology projects that they thought they were going to do in 2023 because of uncertain times. They're saying, yeah, we're going to hold off on doing that implementation to 2024. Now is the time, and blockchain could be one of those pretty instrumental projects they move forward.
What is the friction, or what is the, again, I'm not looking for actual costs or anything like that, but does a brand or BPO, do they have to be super technologically advanced? Is there a specific programming set? You know, how easy is this to implement? And can you kind of just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's like a black box and you pop it in. I mean, it's pretty easy. Like I said, it's exactly the same language that they're doing for their clients, right? The transformation audit, and then implementing the audit, and then ensuring that the audit components are met. And maintenance on blockchain is probably, every 6 months we'll take a look at it. It's like, hey, do we need to retune it? We would add things to the registry, that sort of thing. But as we mentioned pre-call, this is also an opportunity to help with the agent community, as well as those who are downwind of the site director. What I mean by this is that blockchain could quite frankly be a pretty good career path for them, saying, hey, now we need a QA in the CX blockchain, or hey, we need a CX blockchain specialist to help us with the maintenance and such. So I could imagine that it could be a pretty good upsell to your agent community to be loyal, because as you know, and as I know, it's really hard to find good talent out there right now in these uncertain times.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of made the joke, and I don't know if this is a joke or people will yell at me or I'll get hate mail from this, but it's almost easier right now to find an engineer than it is a really good call center rep, with where we are economy wise and with layoffs and with some of the things right now. It's definitely interesting. Question for you on can you talk about maybe the future a little bit, and maybe start with, where does the metaverse kind of come into play when it comes to CX? I mean, everybody talks about, that's another thing that has just totally flopped or failed, which I just keep saying we are the internet of 1994. We are so early in all of this stuff that we can't make judgments on any of this. And I know brands are starting to really make huge investments into the metaverse. Can you kind of just talk about the meeting of CX, the blockchain, and the metaverse, and then maybe, next question, we'll talk about the future, where you see things 5 to 10 years, but can you just kind of talk more metaverse right now?
Yeah, in fact, I penned an opinion piece about CX, blockchain, and metaverse, and how they might be a 1-2 punch, a combo, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, metaverse is quite frankly a retread of virtual reality back in the 90s, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've been there, done that. It's just a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of a pivot on it, making it better and different. But what blockchain does to it is it secures that environment. I can't tell you how many stories we read is some chick goes into a virtual bar on the metaverse and she gets attacked. Like, well, you wouldn't do that in downtown Philadelphia now, would you?
Right.
So you kind of have to have the same common sense as you do in the real world as you do in the virtual world. But I also say I just flew back from South Africa on a plane out of Heathrow and had delightful conversation. I'm going to get to the point quickly, with a software executive who is applying blockchain to gaming as it relates to the metaverse. And this is a customer experience, interesting case study, right? So kid gets all of his armor, his hat, his sword, his whatever from Fortnite. He decides, man, I spent $1,000 there. Mom says to shut it down, shuts it down. You got all these accessories and you can't get to them, but you can store them on the blockchain for when you go to your other game and you bring back your sword and your hat and your this and that. And he says that is going like wildfire in the UK pending regulations. But that's just one example of how blockchain can secure metaverse in a real-time application through the use of gaming.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I mean, I've always thought of it that I don't know why Fortnite is not like all of those swords and helmets and skins, why they're not NFTs, right? That, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that is coming so that you could buy them. I don't want them anymore. Go sell them to somebody who does want them. But I love that use case too, to be able to take the kind of intra-game things into other. That's really cool.
But also it also blends into what we were talking previously, is those crypto wallets, right? As we know, a lot of the governments are leaving cash, going to digital currencies. Nigeria's done it. The Fed's doing a quick pilot, 8-week pilot, to determine if we want to take US into digital currency. And I have an opinion, but I'll park that for a minute. Right. One of the things that's the problem is that kids are going to have these crypto wallets. And could you imagine where they're using mom's credit card to buy their hat with a crypto wallet, and they enter the wrong digit, and then all of a sudden they got to call into the call center, and the agent goes, man, I don't know how to work a crypto wallet. Right. So blockchain can physically put that knowledge base, FAQs, right into the blockchain, so that the Sally call center agent can figure out how to get Sam's wallet back.
And I think you make a really good point too. That's been a huge issue, right? That's been a huge issue of, and again, it's very difficult to differentiate, and we need to differentiate the, and I've said it like 12 times already, the underlying technology, but the friction to get onto the blockchain for some of these other use cases, right? When it comes to crypto, when it comes to NFTs, when it comes to even the smart contract world, like those have been the real issue of some of the, why we've not seen this really blow up more. But it's just going to take one. There's going to be like a Chat GPT experience, right? Where somebody's going to just figure it out from the blockchain standpoint. And then we're going to start talking about that. And then Chat GPT will go in the background for like, 3 weeks. But I think it's something like that's going to happen as well.
Well, I was going to say, if I were a BPO executive, what I would do is I would take 100 seats in one of my sites and do a pilot on blockchain. Say, hey, look, put this site on the blockchain. Let's see how it goes. And then if that site is overperforming or performing, then you bring on other sites, not all the sites at once, because that might inundate IT and so on and so forth. I would recommend a phased approach. We're doing that in South America, where there's a Latin call center, a series of call centers where they want to take one location and then another location, and then another location. I think that's a smart way to do it, to implement it and to introduce it into the CX environment and BPO. Because look, at the end of the day, BPOs are fantastic at using other folks' technology to bring into their environment and resell it, white label it, whatever you have. I feel like there has to be an IP that they own, and that blockchain registry could be that, where they own it, so that they have some skin in the game for accountability on QBRs.
Do you see any of and this is, we've not talked about this, so you could just tell me to shut up if this is a bad question, or again, I don't want to talk about like competing things, because what you guys are doing is amazing. But I mean, do you see eventually, a Genesis or a Nice CX1 or a Five9 or somebody really putting some investment into this to try to, kind of, I don't know, get their customers kind of thinking this way as well? Or have you not really seen that yet?
We've had multiple conversations with names you've just mentioned, where we would be the engine of their said effort, because we're already doing it, but we would be white labeled into their environment. I'm not going to say any names because that was silly. But here's the point. Yes, the answer is yes. They know it's there. They know they need to do it. It's just a matter of time, but they don't want to put resources towards it to try to figure it out and R&D it. We already did it. So why reinvent the wheel? We're the worldwide authority. Why not leverage us? And our phone rings all the time with those guys. Yeah.
And they're, I mean, it's a smart business model. They're famous for that, right? I mean, even when it came to chatbots, it's crazy for them to create their own, right? So they just kind of, everybody stayed agnostic. So because there's specific ones for financial services, and now, so no, I get that. I think that totally makes sense. And I prefer that model as well, because that is a kind of a la carte for me, right? To go and say, I can kind of pick and choose, if I want to do this in my BPO. But then obviously that's cool too, because you would have pre-built integrations and some things would already be in place. So that's very interesting to hear. Again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to kind of ask you about that too. Hey, let's talk about the really weird, like get super crazy. Nothing is kind of
limits.
You can say anything you want, but let's talk about the future. Like let's say near future, like 5-10 years, and then maybe kind of even a little bit beyond that. But where do you see this technology as specifically as it relates to customer experience, and how do you see this evolving and turning into something obviously more than it is today?
Yeah, so near and dear to my heart is free speech and censorship. And I could imagine that all the publishing that we have today on the internet would be on a blockchain register, so that if someone says, I'm going to make this up because this didn't happen in 2020, that presidential elections were rigged, that's a statement that is a freedom of speech. And that particular statement is censored. Well, on the blockchain, it wouldn't be censored, because it is part of the data that is then in the blockchain. So I could imagine blockchain being a part of free speech, publishing.
So it's like decentralized speech instead of a decentralized crypto or monetary policy.
Exactly. And here's the thing: once it's on the blockchain, the government can't change it. So, and I'm really anti-corruption. So that would be one use case scenario. The other use case scenario is this: that they blend conversational AI and blockchain to include technology, but at a moment's notice, bring in a human to make some sense out of it, but put it back on the blockchain. So folks like Interactions from the Boston area, they're already doing conversational AI, right? They're a technology company, but combined with blockchain, I think it makes a lot of sense to continue to streamline some of those conversations so that there's more efficiencies as well as cost efficiencies there. I could also see it as part of more of the metaverse, but I don't think that metaverse is going to survive. I truly don't think. We've been there, done that. I think it's going to be a pretty heavy lift, but something like a virtual reality could be in the works. I don't think that metaverse is where it's going to stop.
No, it's interesting. I'm so excited again, I think I was shook to my core, and again, I was AI, over the last even year. It wasn't in your face, right? A lot of it was on the back end, like looking at workforce intelligence and workforce management and speech analytics and, improving these tools. And then again, not to say that ChatGPT is going to totally revolutionize, but it just put light bulbs in everybody's head on where this thing could go. So, my head then said, all right, we have to stay relevant, right, as a business. And we've been trying to get into these tools. And I think this is, speaking to you is, I don't know, this has been kind of cathartic for me because I really want
in the mail.
to, or self-affirming, right? Like that kind
right.
of, because I really, and if any, again, I've talked so much about this in kind of use cases, and to really hear it from the hardcore business use case, not like, you could do it for a couple of these projects and programs, and it could be, but to really have it almost redefine what you do as a contact center, even as a business for BPO is really, really interesting. And I think it's something everybody's got to start to talk about more.
Well, we appreciate you bringing us on so that we can talk about it more. I think there's a lot of education that needs to be had within the BPO environment, just so that they understand it's not a scary thing. It's actually a good thing. It's not a heavy lift. It's an easy lift, and it does affect your bottom line.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. All right. But before I let you go, is there anything, can you just maybe give where people can find your company again, throw your website up, make sure that you follow Shelli on LinkedIn. There's a ton of blockchain and kind of CX. And again, guys, everybody knows there's not a lot of this. There's not a lot of people talking yet about how the blockchain and how these newer technologies are affecting customer experience without talking about crypto, without talking about really kind of all this kind of, second tier, third layer stuff on top of it. So make sure you follow her, make sure you follow the company. But Shelli, if you want to give maybe a shout out to your social stuff, we can get that stuff out there too.
Yeah. So I would encourage everyone to go to our website at cxblockchain.org and download our market intelligence report that'll show them how folks like you are using blockchain, and then in what areas it affects change. I think that's the most important place that they could go.
Yeah. And then before we go here, I just want to show this too. So, Jacob said, it's been really difficult to understand how to interact with new technologies in the CX, whether it's AI, blockchain. Glad we're having this conversation today. And Shelli, we need to have more of this conversation. Like, you need to come on maybe later this year for sure. I'd love to hear more, real world use cases. And then, I'm sure even I may be talking to you too about, some of the things that we're doing here, because I think that this is for real. This isn't like, hey, let's just try it out. Maybe it goes away. This isn't going away. This is a revolutionary technology that can really expand what we're doing from a CX standpoint.
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out from Jacob, and thanks for having us on. And I'll also say that we'll have updated figures for 2023 for the market intel, probably May or March. I have a speaking engagement that I want to dust it off. So yeah, feel free to invite me back anytime.
All right, Shelli, thank you guys so much. And hey, everybody, I will talk to all of you next week.